Welcome to This Explainer. If you've ever felt just completely exhausted by the challenges of life, today's analysis of Hebrews chapter 12 is absolutely for you. Right out of the gate, the text introduces this incredibly powerful metaphor. It frames the entire human experience, with all of its trials, its setbacks, and its disappointments, as a grueling spiritual marathon. But more importantly, it doesn't just leave us running in the dark. It gives us this brilliant playbook for exactly how to keep running when everything inside of us just wants to throw in the towel and quit. So I want to ask you a question, and I want you to really think about this for a second. Imagine you're at the Olympics. Would a competitive runner ever carry a heavy, cumbersome suitcase onto the track right before a race? Of course not. That would be totally absurd. A real runner sheds every single unnecessary ounce of weight before the starting gun even fires. And Hebrews argues that we actually need to approach our spiritual and our daily lives with that exact same ruthless efficiency if we're going to survive our trials.
So let's dive into stage one. Dropping life's heavy weights, or shedding what slows us down.
Before we can even start talking about endurance, we have to figure out what's actually hindering us. And Hebrews makes this really fascinating distinction between outright sin and what it just calls weights. See, we live in a world that is aggressively engineered to compete for our attention. Just think about our modern burdens for a minute. We're talking about unhealthy relationships, that constant gnawing worry about money, a complete obsession with scrolling through social media, maybe a paralyzing fear of the future, or that endless, exhausting cycle of comparing ourselves to other people. Now, these aren't necessarily sins in the traditional sense of the word, but they are incredibly heavy distractions that make our race infinitely harder to run.
Because of all this extra baggage, we really need to reframe how we evaluate our daily lives. Instead of constantly asking the baseline question of, well, is this wrong or is this technically a sin, we're challenged to ask a much sharper, much more focused question. Is this helping me run toward Christ, or is it slowing me down? It's a fundamental shift in how we examine ourselves. It forces us to take a hard look at what we are carrying right now that God literally never asked us to carry in the first place.
All right, let's move on to stage two. Looking to Jesus in trials, keeping focus when hitting the wall.
In literally any marathon, there comes a moment where you just hit the wall. The sheer exhaustion sets in and every single muscle is screaming at you to stop. When life's trials hit, our natural human reaction is to stare at the problems, right? We stare at our bank accounts or we fixate on our past. But if you want to know exactly why Jesus matters during trials, Hebrews 13:8 provides this incredibly powerful anchor. It says, Jesus Christ the same yesterday and today and forever. He is literally the one constant in an entirely unpredictable universe.
To really understand the power of that anchor, you just have to look around at what does change. People change. Circumstances can flip upside down overnight. Money comes and goes. Relationships shift. Even our own bodies change and break down over time, right? Everything around us is highly, highly unstable. If you anchor your focus to your circumstances or to other people during a trial, you're eventually going to sink, simply because those things are always moving. Jesus is the only permanently safe focal point because he absolutely does not change.
Because of that incredible stability, we're challenged to make a massive mental shift when life gets overwhelming. Usually, when a major trial hits, our only thought is, man, how am I going to get through this? How do I just survive? But if we're truly looking to Jesus, the question actually becomes, Jesus, how do you want me to walk through this? See what that does? It totally transforms the trial from a mere survival test into a guided journey with a real purpose.
And that brings us to stage three, finding purpose in pain, the coach's conditioning.
This is where we really have to wrap our heads around the concept of God's discipline. We aren't just running aimlessly out there. We are being conditioned by a coach. And this text acknowledges a very deep, very real kind of spiritual exhaustion. You know the feeling being just so tired of doing the right thing, tired of waiting for answers, tired of dealing with difficult people or trying to stand for truth? When you feel that deep, overwhelming urge to just quit, we're told to remember Jesus' ultimate endurance. He endured the sheer horror of the cross because he could see the joy and the purpose on the other side of that suffering. We are called to borrow from that exact same endurance.
Now, part of building this endurance involves completely changing how we view correction. Hebrews 12:6 says, "For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth." This normalizes our pain by comparing God to a good, loving parent. Think about it. A loving parent doesn't just let their kid do whatever they want. They shape and they condition their child because they desperately want them to grow. So God's correction is never evidence of his rejection. It's actually profound evidence of his fatherly love for us.
And here's where the payoff actually happens. I want you to notice the immense power of the word afterward.
The text states that God's discipline eventually yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness. But the absolutely crucial point here is that you might not see the fruit during the struggle itself. The patience, the humility, the deep wisdom, and that stronger, rock-solid faith, these things are forged in the fire, for sure, but the fruit often only appears afterward. God doesn't always remove the difficulty immediately, because He is actively doing something inside of us while we're right in the middle of it.
Let's look at stage 4, refusing the bitter root, jumping the hurdles of hurt.
Every single runner has to jump hurdles, right? And the highest hurdles we face are very often relational hurts. Hebrews maps out this incredibly dangerous step-by-step progression that we've all fallen into. Step 1, someone hurts you. Step 2, instead of actually dealing with it, you just replay it over and over and over in your mind. Step 3, it ferments into anger, and you start seeing everything through the lens of that one offense. And finally, step 4, that unaddressed wound hardens into a thick root of bitterness. And the truly terrifying thing about bitterness is that it never, ever stays contained. It spreads like a weed, infecting your marriage, your friendships, and ultimately, your own faith.
To combat this, look at the stark contrast between the world's advice and Jesus' advice. The world's natural, reactionary playbook says, hey, if they hurt you, get revenge. Look out for number 1. But Jesus' playbook is radically different. He says, forgive, love your neighbor. And listen, forgiveness here doesn't mean pretending the hurt didn't happen. It's not faking it. It means refusing to allow what happened to control and consume your heart.
We're actually commanded to lift up the hands which hang down. Think about our modern culture for a second, especially on social media. People are constantly publicly shamed for their mistakes. Disagreement automatically means destruction, and people literally celebrate the failures of others. But the biblical mandate is the exact opposite. If someone is hurting, you help them. If they're weak, you don't mock them, you strengthen people rather than destroy them.
Which brings us to our final stretch. Stage 5, standing on unshakable ground, the finish line. As we finally pull our eyes up from the dirt of the track and lock them on to the eternal reality we are sprinting toward, we're given this stark, sobering cautionary tale about a man named Esau. Esau famously traded his incredibly valuable birthright for a single, temporary meal, just because he was hungry in the moment. Now, how often do we do the exact same thing today? Trading a marriage for an affair, trading our integrity for a little extra money, our reputation for some cheap attention, or our relationship with God for a fleeting pleasure. The temptation always screams at us, you need this right now, but faith demands that we value what lasts forever over what simply satisfies for a moment.
To make this totally clear, the writer contrasts 2 literal mountains to show us exactly what we are running toward. Mount Sinai represents the old way, terrifying, unapproachable, deeply emphasizing our massive distance from a holy God. But believers are told they have come to Mount Zion, the city of the living God, with Jesus acting as the mediator of a brand new covenant. We don't have to earn our way into God's terrifying presence anymore. We are actually invited in, entirely because of what Jesus has done and our faith in Him.
And because of that incredible, mind-blowing privilege, the text delivers this beautifully grounding promise in Hebrews 12:28. Wherefore we receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved. This is the ultimate takeaway, guys. Everything in this world, our economies, our health, our relationships, our societies, they all can and will be shaken. But God's kingdom cannot be moved. When the entire world feels violently unstable, this assures us that we can firmly plant our feet on the unshakable ground of Christ. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a highly personal question to examine yourself with. Think about the race you are currently running. Think about the weights you are carrying right now and the deep exhaustion you might be feeling. The ultimate question you have to answer today is this. In the very middle of your trials, are you trading something eternal for something temporary, or are you looking to Jesus? Keep running. Don't quit. I'll see you in the next explainer.